Okay. Is there any special training you guys have to do specifically for, like you are now the interim director of service learning? Do you have to do any special training for that, technological wise or not?
As a part of my hiring, I said, gee, I've done service learning, but I've never studied about how one directs service learning. So I want to have made part of my package that they would allow me to go to a conference and a pre-conference workshop so I can actually learn about that. But it was more of a negotiation than a requirement.
It's mostly on-the-job training. I mean, you just, you get put into a place where you have to do certain things, and you just, you learn how to do them. And it's nice. As honors director, I went to certain conferences that were really helpful. Heard certain experts, but I think for the most part, you have good teachers, and you hope that just by osmosis you get some of that, and if you have to do other things, then you sort of move around in the atmosphere with other people who are good at it. Hope you learn some things from them.
Just ask questions and then bluff when you have
to. A lot of bluffing.
By the way, I think that's probably true in other jobs that I've had as well. I mean, you might have 2 weeks of training that don't really prepare you for what you're going to find when you get the job, and then you have to just kind of, hope that you can make it through and bluff occasionally. Yeah.
I will say, as I think I've explained to some of you guys, in a lot of graduate school programs, there isn't a lot of training in what a lot of people will be doing afterwards, which is teaching undergraduates in a classroom, who not all of whom want to go and also become professors, right? So that was something in grad school that a group of students recognized was a deficiency. There was like one class in composition theory that was very theoretical. And then they're putting these, this is Boston College at the time was probably like 45 grand a year. And I was like, I'm teaching a class here and I'm like 25 and I had this one useless class and just kind of learning by doing, which is great, but looking back now, I see I was not really prepared. So we organized like a pedagogy seminar, and this was outside of our other demands and work and classes and stuff, to like realize, I don't really know how to do this yet, and it's sort of assumed as long as you master your subject, you can be a teacher, and I think those two things don't always go together. So that's something we kind of continually work on too.
What are your guys' I know some of you guys have to do like certain type of research projects or anything, and so what are some projects that you guys are working on now, and how do you how are you gonna try to share your findings with whomever you get to share? If you're working on it right now, I don't know if you guys are, but I know.
I kind of have shifted over the years to working in the scholarship of teaching and learning. So along the lines of trying to make myself a better teacher, there's an accepted field out there where what you do is kind of reflect and practice teaching, and sort of coincidentally with my service learning position, I have been working in service learning the last 2 years or so. I'm trying to do that, and I'm also kind of really interested in Nicaragua and other international stuff. So I've just like last week sent out an email to 5 or 6 people that I know have connections with service learning and second language. And so I'm trying to get together a group of 3 or 5 folks who will do some research on how we can best do service learning and second language stuff. And my traditional thing is that I will take that to a conference, and if it goes well at a conference, then I'll try to organize the folks and we'll write a paper and submit that to a journal. And sometimes we'll choose sort of a low-hanging B class, if I dare say that, even with the video on, journal, and then turn it to a higher one, with more beef behind it somehow.
And a larger readership.
And a larger readership.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's another way to put it.
Yeah.
Some of the more competitive journals have really large readerships and large circulation. So by B class, he means just not as many people read it. Others? Are you working on a research project now?
Yep.
The camera's rolling, Rich.
In fact, you're making me anxious because I should be doing it right now. I should be finishing it. But that was something that began, and maybe this will be relevant for you guys as you think about how projects evolve and how your projects are going to evolve. So it began with me wanting to go to a conference in Prague. All right, so I said, so I need to come up with something that I can read in Prague. And it's all about this Irish writer, Flann O'Brien. So I'm like, okay, I've written about him before. What do I really have left to say? And then I thought, I play this sport called hurling, which is an Irish sport. Maybe I'll do something on Flann O'Brien and hurling. So I just wanted to find out if there were any sort of intersections. And then it sort of became one of these, a project of gaps, right? You find a sort of a gap in it. So he was known as a novelist, but he also wrote a daily newspaper column for like 25 years and was an important kind of cultural commentator. And as I was looking through the collections, there wasn't that much stuff on this association, like the Hurling Association, and him, which was surprising because it would have been kind of lined up with a nationalist cultural politics that he otherwise was an opponent of and did engage with directly, right? So I was like, that's interesting that they're not really there. And I realized the collections, had sort of, were incomplete, and the editors had sort of deliberately underused that stuff because there was a sort of movement to make this guy, a critical movement to make him the heir to James Joyce. And so stuff that was just sort of daily, what was seen by the editors as kind of daily stuff that would only be of interest to Irish people was taken out, right? They're looking for this more sort of universal stuff that makes him seem more like a postmodernist. And then it turned out there actually was a lot of interaction. So I got the paper out of it. I got to go to Prague. And then they were doing a collection of some of the essays. So the organizer asked me to revise it and resubmit it. So then I did more, and then it started getting more into not just the kind of cultural politics of the Gaelic Athletic Association, not just sort of this column that Flann O'Brien wrote, but sort of modernist representations of masculine, heteronormative, ableist physicality. So it kind of expanded into a context of modernism. So you can see how they kind of starts someplace and then ends up kind of being something else. How that would come into the classroom, to go back to your earlier question, is definitely probably not direct, right? I did teach, is anyone in the Flann O'Brien course, Victoria? Yeah, okay. So that was the first time, because I knew that would be a tricky novel to teach. But I mean, that kind of research does make me think about those issues, certain alternative masculinities and stuff in other works. So it might not just always be trying to figure out what's happening in 1950 in the Republic of Ireland, but thinking about 1950 in the Republic of Ireland led me to issues that to kind of translate to other classes and texts.
And Tom, in all of the links that the university made for your book, they didn't have a link to buy it. Is it on Amazon yet?
Not yet. Not yet. It doesn't come out till May the 1st. So
Okay.
yeah, but I have the galley. This is the sort of the publisher's dress rehearsal for what
Oh, you have
for
the
what
page
book
proofs?
would look like. Sorry?
Is it a mock-up?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah. So what I do is different. I don't do scholarship like they do. I used to, but I don't really do that much anymore. I write fiction, and I teach creative writing, as Victoria and Justin and Josh know. And so that book took 12 years. So these things have to germinate for a while. And speaking of Prague, I was living in the Czech Republic for a year when I got the idea for that book a long time ago. So, and now I'm doing a book about the Silk Road, and while they wonder about the nature of language and how you learn it, or how you study a deserving Irish writer. I'm interested in what kind of shoes people wore 1,000 years ago. And so when I was in the British Museum a couple of summers ago, and lo and behold, there was just exactly the shoe that I was looking for. So that's, yeah, very, very different kind of thing. Not scholarship of the usual sort at all.
But very research intensive.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. 39 books, at least for that, and 39 books so far for this one. So we'll see. But yeah, not the usual. Not what they're gonna tell you about.
What does 39 books for this one mean?
I read 39 books for that one.
Gotcha.
That I remember before I quit counting. And then so far, just by coincidence, I counted the other day, it's 39 books for the Silk Road book, but still, that many more to go. So.
Nice.
Well, that kind of leads into my question. It's more specifically for Dr. Murphy, because I took your British literature class last fall and you called it British, and then you talked a lot about the Irish, and so I was thinking about like my topic for my paper, possibly to like going back and like sort of what you did, look at those other cultures or minorities within like the British culture, whatever specific time to narrow it down, and talk about like those important movements or those writers in those movements that didn't make it into like the mainstream canon or whatever like that, and what kind of research, how'd that go when you developed your class last fall for that? Like, how did you develop that?
That was 1950 to the present, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the courses that I said I have to get around to changing the title of, because it's really not accurate to just teach British literature 1950 to the present. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have to rethink this. I think that literary landscape has kind of done that for me. So, like, for example, the Man Booker Prize used to be, the prize for the best novel written in the UK, and then it was expanded to the UK and Ireland, and then it was like everywhere except America because you have your own prize. And then it was 5 years ago, finally just kind of said, okay, this is global Anglophone literature. These distinctions are not that meaningful. So, in fact, last time, say, an English writer won that thing was, in the last 20 years, there have been relatively few sort of traditionally English writers who won. There have been people from elsewhere, from India, from Ireland. So yeah, I think